who God was, and he identified him as being able to do what he wanted to do. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of... And all of the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. Now this is his testimony after coming out. And he doeth, he's talking about the Lord, he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand, or say unto him, what doest thou? In other words, don't do that, Lord. They can't do that, because God is God. And at the same time, my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom, and mine honor and rightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol the honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth, and his ways judgment, and those who walk in pride he is able to abase. Now remember that. Now also remember that Belshazzar was aware of this. As we'll find out later, Daniel specifically says that Belshazzar was aware of what happened to his father. He was there. Okay, we're going to pick it up in chapter 5, first verse. Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords. Now that's a pretty good sized party, because if you think about it, these were 1,000 of his lords. These were 1,000 of his leaders. Okay, you might say generals or lieutenants, those that were under him but above everybody else. 1,000 of them, you can just imagine that they had their own companions, whether it be a wife or someone else, a guest. So, in my thinking, there was probably at least 2,000 plus more at this grand party that they were going to have. And he called a feast, 1,000 of his lords. And they drank wine before the 1,000. So that was, I would probably liken that unto one of our parties we have today, political victory party, or maybe the Super Bowl party, just some huge celebration, like a Hollywood extravaganza thing. Okay? Big time, all the big dignitaries were there. The big shots, the well-to-do, they were there. So it was quite some party. Belshazzar, while he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines drank in them. Now, as I said, I believe there were probably many parties that went on. Okay? The problem with this party was just that, those two verses we just read. I believe this is the first time that he took it to that extreme, where he was willing to go get the vessels, the consecrated vessels of the Lord, and use those to participate in this party. Okay? Verse 4. They drank wine and praised. What does that mean right there? Praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and of stone. That means they were worshiping the gods of this world.
That's right.
Daniel will reiterate that when we get over there. But they had this party, and I believe for the first time, they have become brazen or emboldened. Okay? And much like today, we see so many things that would have been kept in the closet years back.
Yeah.
It's all out now.
That's right.
No fear of God, no reverence for God, or His words, or His teaching.
Jesus.
So Belshazzar, in spite of the fact that he had saw what God had done to his father or his grandfather, either one, he didn't care.
That's right.
It was his life, and he was going to party, and the band played on. So let's see what happens to him here. Well, we know the story. I won't go into that part of it too much. Just remind you that this is where the hand of the Lord came down and the finger wrote on the wall those words, and it kind of it shook him. The Bible says that his knees knocked. Okay? The man was shaking. Okay? Well, you can imagine, to see a hand appear out of thin air and begin to write something on the wall, And back in those days, it wasn't. Today, they might be able to rig some kind of thing. You go to Hollywood movie or something, you could see something like that happen. Back then, that was something.
Yes.
That was no put on. It was something. So he got nervous, and he sent for all his soothsayers and wise men and to try to read the words or interpret the words to tell him what that meant, because he was stirred. Band played on. Okay. Nobody could interpret it. So I found it interesting when I was reading through this. In all that first section that we wrote, it didn't say anything about the queen being here. It said wives of the lords, and all these others. But it did not specifically say anything about the queen being at the party.
That's right.
But if you read this, you'll find that where the queen comes in, it says, now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house. So she wasn't there. And the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And in the days of thy father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, was found in him. Now, I'm not going to go into that, but I want you to note that apparently she was not involved in the party. I just picked up a sense that she had some reverence about her. And also, she was the one that related to Daniel. Okay?
Right.
I believe that maybe something she had seen in the past, some of the things that Daniel had told the previous king Nebuchadnezzar, stuck with her. I don't know, the Bible doesn't say that she worshipped the Lord or anything, but I just kind of got a sense. But anyhow, she told the king about Daniel. So the king called him in, and here's what Daniel had to say about the whole thing.